Hey guys, time for another read aloud. Y'all notice my new Dr. Seuss shirt that I got for my birthday? It says, I will teach you in a room. I will teach you now on Zoom. I will teach you in a house. I will teach you with my mouse. I will teach you here or there. I will teach because I care. Isn't that a cool shirt? I like the rhyming words on it. Now today's story is super special. It's super special because it's my dad's favorite story from when he was little. The story is called Little Toot. You know my dad from my sneaky E lesson and my ballot teams lessons. Well, this was his favorite story when he was little. Now, the original author to this story is Hardie Gramatky. But when we open up and look at the title page, we can see where it says it's adapted by Joanne Ryder. That means Joanne Ryder took the story and she may have changed a part or two in it. So, I want you to look at the cover. Look at the cover. Little Toot. Now, what do you think the story is going to be about? We see this boat, and it's kind of rough out, but the boat seems happy. Now, Little Toot is a special type of boat. Little Toot is a tugboat, and a tugboat has a very important job to pull larger boats. So, let's see what Little Toot is going to do about his job of pulling larger boats. Hardie Gramatky's Little Toot, adapted by Joanne Ryder, illustrated by Larry Ross. At the foot of an old wharf lived the cutest little tugboat you ever saw. His name was Little Toot. Blow hard as he could, the only sound that came out of his whistle was a small, merry toot, toot, toot. Little Toot could not make as much noise as the other tugboats, so he liked to show off blowing fat balls of smoke out of his candy stick smokestack. Little Toot felt important then, and the flag at his masthead would dance like the tail of a happy puppy dog. Little Toot. The river where Little Toot lived was full of ships. Some ships brought people from distant lands. Others brought bright-colored carpets from India, fine silk cloth from China, and fresh bunches of bananas from South Africa. So there was always exciting work for tugboats to do. They pushed the big ships into the docks to be unloaded. They towed the ships down the river to the wide, deep ocean. You see all the little tugboats at work? They're pulling and they're pushing, doing their job. Little Toot was right in the middle of all the excitement. He watched his father work hard. Big Toot was the biggest and fastest tugboat on the river. Grandfather Toot liked to tell his grandson about his mighty deeds. "I'm an old sea dog who breathes smoke," he would say. "Someday you'll be just like me, Little Toot." See, there's his dad, the fastest tugboat, and there's his grandfather. Little Toot listened to his grandfather's stories, but he did not want to work and do mighty deeds. He saw no sense in pulling ships 50 times bigger than himself way down to the ocean, and he was scared of the wild seas that lay in wait beyond the river's end. So what did Little Toot not like to do? What did he not like to do? Seems like he doesn't like to work. He doesn't like to pull those ships. He doesn't like to work. Little Toot had no desire to be tossed around. He liked the calm water of the river instead, where you could always find plenty of fun. Sometimes he played thread the needle around the piers. You see him thread the needle, go around. Or he made fancy figure eights. He liked to make bigger and bigger ones. One day, carried away by the joy of it, He made one so big it took up the whole river. See him making the figure 8? Figure 8. So Little Toot, he didn't like to work, but what did he like to do? He kind of liked to play around and make figure 8s. Toot, toot, toot! A big tug blew his loud whistle at Little Toot. On my way, called J.G. McGillicuddy, puffing a big cloud of smoke. I have work to do. I'm going to pick up a string of coal barges from Hoboken. Toot, toot, toot! The big tugboat chased Little Toot away. All the other tugboats made fun of Little Toot, calling him a silly tugboat who only knew how to play. So they kind of called him names. Think of different names that there's not nice names that he was being called. Poor Little Toot. He felt ashamed and angry. As he sailed away, puffing a trail of smoke balls, the other boats just laughed at him. It's not very nice. They made fun of him. Kind of like how Rudolph, when we think of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the other reindeer weren't nice to Rudolph because he was different. Kind of seems almost the same, doesn't it? Little Toot fled to his favorite place by the wharf. He hid, watching the river, and there he just sat and sulked. What do you think sulked means? He just sat and sulked. What do you think that means? Soon he saw a great ocean liner, and pulling it were 4 tugboats. His own father, Big Toot, was right in front. The sight of the brave, bustling tugboats made Little Toot think. Suddenly, a great new idea came to him. I don't want to be a silly tugboat anymore, he thought. I want to be a real tugboat, the best tugboat on the river. Then I'll make my father proud of me. So we see that change. The beginning, he didn't want to work. He didn't like to work. He just wanted to make figure 8s. Now he's changing his mind. See, those other tugboats weren't nice to him, calling him silly and calling him other names. So now what does he want to do? He's determined. Eagerly, Little Toot sailed to one ship after the other. Toot, 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 he called. Throw me a line. I will pull you down the river. But the big ships knew Little Toot too well. One ship blew steam at the little tugboat. Another blew a loud whistle and blasted him right out of the water. Go away, Little Toot, the big ship said. We need a real tugboat to help us. Oh, because he was lazy and didn't want to work. Now the other tugboats don't think he's a real tugboat. Little Toot felt very lonely. He wasn't wanted anywhere or by anyone. With his spirits drooping, he let the tide carry him where it willed. He did not see the sky grow dark. He did not feel the wind blowing harder and harder. The wind was whipping up into a real storm. Just then, Little Toot heard a strange, new sound. It was the ocean. He had never seen the great ocean before. Noisy waves crashed and dashed and pounded against the rocks. Uh-oh, does he like stormy waters? But that wasn't all. Against the black sky climbed a brilliant, flaming rocket. It was a ship's danger flare. Little Toot looked hard and saw a big ship jammed between 2 huge rocks. It was an ocean liner his father had towed many times down the river. The ship was in trouble. It was truly a terrible thing to see. Little Toot was so excited, he puffed more and more smoke balls. They gave him a wonderful idea. Those smoke balls could probably be seen all the way up the river where his father and grandfather were. So he puffed a signal. What signal did he puff? He puffed SOS, which a lot of people say for help. When they need help, they say SOS, especially out at sea. Way up the river, the tugboat saw Little Toot's signal. They had no idea who was sending the signal, but they knew what it meant. Come quickly. SOS, SOS. Down the river steamed the great fleet. Big boats, little boats, fat boats, and skinny boats. Big Toot led them all. SOS, SOS, SOS. All the boats coming to the rescue. What do you think is going to happen? What's Little Toot going to do? The ocean waves grew bigger and bigger. It was hard for Little Toot to stay afloat. Waves spun him around till he was dizzy. They tossed him higher and higher. It looked as though he'd never get down. Uh-oh, I bet that was scary. What do you think? At the top of one wave, Little Toot saw the other boats. They could not reach him. Even Grandfather Toot was bellowing. He had never seen such a storm. Little Toot was scared green. Something had to be done. But what could he do now? He only knew how to play and blow those silly smoke balls out of his candy stick smokestack. The fleet of boats fought against the waves, but the waves pushed him back. They were almost ready to give up. Then they heard a merry, familiar call. Toot, toot, toot. It was Little Toot. He was not fighting the waves. He was riding on top of them, bouncing from one wave to the next, like a rubber ball. The pounding hurt like anything, but Little Toot kept right on going. Finally, Little Toot reached the great ship. Then the crew threw him a line. Little Toot waited for a long moment. A huge wave swept under the ship, lifting it clear of the rocks. Then Little Toot pulled with all of his might. The ocean liner came free. So do you see what you did? Little Toot, he didn't like to work at the beginning of the story. He just liked to play and make figure eights. Then he got real upset because he was being called names and being made fun of by the other boats. So he became determined. He went from lazy to determined. He was determined he was going to prove them wrong. But then he got into some trouble, and it got rough. But then he saw this ship out there. And so he went from being lazy to determined to a what? Let's see. The people on board began to cheer. All the tugboats blew their whistles. They insisted that Little Toot lead the great boat back into the harbor. Little Toot was a hero. Grandfather Toot blasted the news all over the river. My grandson's a sea dog just like me. He became a hero. And after that, Little Toot became quite a different fellow. He was a real tugboat now. He towed big loads up and down the river, just like the other boats. No one made fun of him anymore. He could even haul as big a load as his father could. Well, almost as big. And that made Big Toot and Little Toot very proud indeed. So I want you to think about what happened at the beginning of the story, then what happened in the middle, and then what happened at the end. And I want you to think about the message that the story is teaching us. What message is it trying to teach us? Maybe it's trying to teach us that if we put our mind to something and work really hard, we can overcome our fears and do anything, right? Right. Now, You know what I want you to work hard at right now? Go take an AR test.